A single block of stone sits in the Egyptian desert. It weighs more than a modern locomotive, carved with angles so precise you could slide a razor blade along the edge without finding a gap. For centuries, it has rested there, unbothered, unbroken, and completely impossible, at least by today's standards. Engineers stare at it with confusion, historians shrug, and no one can fully explain how it was made. And this stone is just one of thousands. Ancient Egypt left behind monuments so overwhelming in scale, precision, and ambition that the deeper we study them, the stranger the story becomes. Some structures look less like the work of a Bronze Age civilization and more like the aftermath of a very advanced blueprint we still haven't rediscovered. Yet over 4,000 years ago, ordinary people, farmers, quarrymen, scribes, stonecutters, apparently did all this with copper tools and wooden sleds. At least that's what we're told. But something doesn't add up. Travelers throughout history, from Herodotus to Napoleon's engineers, stared at the pyramids and temples and all came to the same silent conclusion. These shouldn't exist. Not with the tools Egyptians supposedly had, not with the technology historians claim they used. And yet there they are, massive, immovable, real. Our story begins with the most famous example of all, the Great Pyramid of Giza. People forget that this was not merely a big pile of stones. It was once the most precisely aligned building on Earth. Each side of the base points almost perfectly toward true north. So perfectly that even modern surveying teams say the precision is nearly impossible without laser equipment. To this day, no one knows exactly how the ancient Egyptians measured true north with such accuracy. But that's only the first riddle. The Great Pyramid contains around 2.3 million limestone blocks, some weighing as much as an adult elephant. Egyptologists say they were dragged from quarries using manpower alone. Imagine pulling a multi-ton stone across desert sand with nothing but ropes and determination. Even if you could move the blocks, you still have to place them, layer by layer, row by row, with an error margin so small that the entire pyramid is off by less than the width of your thumb. And here's the detail most documentaries skip. Each block wasn't randomly shaped. Many were carved with angled faces, keyed edges, or custom fits that interlocked like giant 3D puzzle pieces. To make such stones today, we'd use diamond-tipped saws, precision grinders, and heavy machinery. The Egyptians supposedly used copper chisels, so soft that even a child could bend them by hand. The more we study the pyramids, the more the official explanation sounds like a polite guess. Take the mysterious saw marks found at quarries. Some granite blocks show cut marks with a uniform spacing, as if made by a large machine saw. Engineers studying these marks noted something unusual. The cutting pattern suggests the blade moved through the stone faster than copper saws should be able to cut. Much faster. In fact, it resembles the feed rate of modern mechanical saws. But this is granite, harder than steel. Even with modern tools, cutting it is slow. Now imagine creating a 70-ton obelisk out of a single granite piece. The ancient Egyptians carved dozens of them, so precisely balanced that when standing, the tip points almost perfectly straight upward, as if aligned by unseen forces. The famous Unfinished Obelisk, still lying abandoned in its quarry, offers a clue. The Egyptians were shaping this enormous granite monolith directly out of the bedrock. How? They didn't cut chunks out of the stone. They didn't use chisels. Instead, they somehow created deep, smooth channels through solid granite, almost as if they were scooping through butter. And this is where the mystery gets stranger. Some archaeologists propose they used diorite pounding stones, basically heavy rocks, to carve out the obelisk. But if you take a pounding stone to granite today, you'll create rough pits and chips, not a smooth trough. Yet the troughs around the unfinished obelisk are astonishingly clean and uniform. Another theory claims they used sand and copper saws, but sand and copper cannot produce the deep, curved trenches we see. Modern engineers examining the site often admit, "We don't know how they did this." Then there are the temples. Walk into the Valley Temple near the Sphinx, and you'll find megalithic limestone blocks weighing up to 200 tons each. These stones were not stacked loosely, they were precisely fitted with joints so tight that no mortar was needed. Some blocks have multiple corners, angles, and interlocking faces, making them nearly impossible to adjust once placed. Today, lifting a 200-ton block requires a specialized crane. The Egyptians supposedly dragged these across the desert, then lifted them into place, without wheels. But the real surprise lies inside these temples, perfectly carved granite columns and statues polished like glass. To achieve this level of polish today, we would use industrial grinders. Yet the Egyptians left behind no such tools. Instead, we see bowls, jars, and statues carved from diorite, a stone harder than steel, with interior shapes so symmetrical they seem machined. And then, there's the strange resonance found within the granite chambers of the pyramids. Some explorers notice that humming or talking inside these chambers creates powerful acoustic effects. The granite itself resonates like a giant tuning fork. Was this intentional, a coincidence, or evidence that the builders understood something about sound and vibration? We don't know. But there's one detail that might be the most mysterious of all: the chronological problem. Egyptian civilization rose quickly, too quickly. Within a few hundred years, they went from early farming communities to constructing some of the largest stone monuments the world has ever seen. Most societies take thousands of years to develop advanced engineering. Egypt did it faster than anyone else in history. Then, strangely, their stoneworking abilities declined. Later dynasties built smaller pyramids with poorer construction. The craftsmanship of the earlier monuments was never matched again. This raises an unsettling question. Were the earliest builders more advanced than the later ones? Some researchers argue that the earliest structures, like the Great Pyramid and the Osirion at Abydos, show signs of superior engineering compared to later temples, which were built with smaller, roughly cut stones. It's almost as if the Egyptians inherited advanced techniques from an earlier group and gradually forgot them. The Osirion is a perfect example. Enormous granite blocks, some weighing more than 100 tons, arranged underground with a precision that rivals modern metalwork. Unlike most Egyptian temples, which are covered in hieroglyphs, the Osirion has almost no writing. The Egyptians later added inscriptions on nearby walls, as if tagging something they did not originally build. Then there's the Serapeum of Saqqara. Deep underground sit 24 massive granite boxes, each weighing around 70 tons, carved from a single stone. The lids alone weigh about 30 tons. The interiors of the boxes are polished to a mirror-like finish, with perfect right angles and surfaces so flat they can be measured with a laser. If you inserted a modern square into the corners, the fit would be nearly perfect. For centuries, archaeologists believed these boxes held sacred bulls, but many were found empty, and the effort needed to create them defies belief. To carve a perfectly smooth interior inside a block of granite would require tooling and measurement methods far beyond what we traditionally credit to the Egyptians. One engineer who studied the boxes joked, "If I asked a modern factory to produce one of these in a month, they might refuse." Yet the Egyptians supposedly made 24. So what's the explanation? Advanced tools? Lost knowledge? A forgotten technique that modern workers no longer use? Some propose that the Egyptians mastered abrasive techniques with unknown materials. Others suggest they used sound frequencies to break or cut stone, an idea inspired by the acoustic anomalies in the pyramids. Some argue they used an early form of concrete, though tests on the stones mostly show natural quarried rock, not reconstituted material. And then there are the fringe theories: alien technology, ancient power tools, advanced lost civilizations. Most historians reject these ideas, but even they admit something unusual happened in ancient Egypt. Because when you gather all the evidence together, the precision, the scale, the rapid rise, the sudden decline, it forms a puzzle that refuses to fit into the normal timeline of human development. One of the most intriguing clues comes from a small, simple object, a fragment of a circular saw found in an ancient tomb. It's made of copper, which shouldn't be strong enough to cut granite. Yet the teeth show wear inconsistent with soft stone. Was it used with an abrasive we no longer recognize, or part of a more complex tool? We may never know. Another clue lies in the alignment of monuments across Egypt. Many temples and pyramids are oriented towards specific star positions with astonishing accuracy. Some align with Orion's belt, others with the rising sun during solstices. Achieving this would require advanced astronomical knowledge. The Egyptians likely possessed this knowledge, but where did it come from? Trial and error, generational study, or something else? The mystery deepens when we consider that similar unexplained engineering appears in other ancient cultures, like the stone temples of Peru or the megaliths of Turkey. Different civilizations, different continents, but a shared puzzle. How were these things built? Perhaps the real secret of ancient Egypt is not technology, but time. Time to experiment. Time to pass down knowledge. Time to become masters of techniques lost to modern society, where speed matters more than durability. While we build quickly, they built forever. Or perhaps the Egyptians simply saw the world differently. Where we see stone, they saw potential. Where we see impossibility, they saw challenge. Where we rely on machines, they relied on ingenuity, patience, and a worldview rooted in eternity. The truth is probably a combination of forgotten techniques, extraordinary craftsmanship, and human determination. A mix of genius and mystery. And maybe that's what makes ancient Egypt so captivating. Because even after centuries of study, we still stand before those structures with the same awe as the first travelers who laid eyes on them. We look at the pyramids, the temples, the obelisks, and we ask the same simple question. How? How did they lift what we can barely lift today? How did they carve stone we struggle to cut? How did they align monuments more accurately than modern cities? How did a civilization so ancient create structures that seem to mock our modern understanding? And perhaps the most thrilling part is that the answers may still lie buried beneath the desert sand, waiting for someone to uncover them. Until then, the mystery endures, written in stone, larger than life and older than history itself.